He activates the 8 stanzas of the Black Mist and starts a sequence of attacks on the back. Now that the main part was complete, he could take a look around. As he approaches Miss Sarah, he asks Karam if this is the place, and she says yes. She was sensing 2 combined energies. He then cuts the barrier and seems startled. On the ground, there's a girl holding an egg in her hands, but she already looks dead. He says there's nothing special, just a girl. However, Karam tells him to pay attention. In her arms, she was holding a dragon egg. Now we're back home. Yelkin asks where he got that, and our boy just plays it off, saying he found it somewhere. Obviously, the guy doesn't believe him and asks what kind of nonsense is this about finding it. But Shan is more worried about whether that guy was really going to sell something as dangerous as this, and who was the buyer, and where was it supposed to be delivered. Yelkin then asks what they're going to do if this thing suddenly hatches and turns out to be extremely dangerous. But Shan responds not to worry, as a dragon is a massive energy that needs certain attributes. The egg would only hatch if they continually injected it with the correct attribute of magic. But just as he says this, they hear a crack. Both turn to see that the egg is starting to hatch. With this, the fool realizes he really screwed up. A light starts emanating, and finally the egg cracks. Out of it comes a little girl, right? What did you think was going to hatch? An insane dragon? No, of course, it had to be a lowly. Yelkin is freaking out, wondering what they're going to do. But Shan is more impressed that it's a mixed race. And the fact that she's half-human makes this a much bigger problem than he imagined. But the little dragon girl is smiling at him, even giving him a hug. Since he was present at her birth, he starts imagining that maybe she thinks of him as her dad. Suddenly, someone nearby laughs. It's Karam, who says it's ironic that an 11-year-old boy is now a father. But Shan says it's all her fault. We then see the moment he picked up the egg and asked if they should really take it. Karam said yes, because it could fall into the wrong hands. Our boy was afraid of it hatching, but she assured him that a dragon egg wouldn't hatch without the right energy or a mother. Back in the present, she says this just proves that anything can happen. Our boy asks what that nonsense was about the egg not being able to hatch without a mother. And she replies that's why she said anything can happen. But this business about a mixed race was truly curious. The very existence of that creature was dangerous. The protagonist knows this. And the worst part is this is going to be a massive headache. It was already a problem for a half-human, half-beast hybrid. Now half-dragon made everything much harder. The world they lived in was far too dangerous for something like this to exist. If anyone at the academy found out about her existence, the chances of her being eliminated to prevent a threat were very high. Moreover, dragons were extremely proud of their race and pure blood. If they discovered the existence of this child, it would certainly come to eliminate her. This makes him wonder why he would take on such a huge risk. If she was destined to live such a hard life, maybe it would be better to end it. Salen smiles and says she agrees that maybe this is the best solution for the child. He places his hand on her neck, and Salen says that's the right path, as it would be a life of misery anyway. And Shan keeps repeating to himself that it would be better to end her life right there. But she starts to open her eyes, and as soon as he touches her neck, she calls him Dada. Shan was staring at her as if he was going to kill her. But when he hesitates for a second, she snuggles up and says it's love. The poor guy realizes he's screwed as he notices how warm she is. He picks her up by her little arms and lifts her, saying that apparently now they'll have to figure out a solution for this. He tells Karam they're going to take care of her, but Karam isn't too thrilled about this. The scene then shifts back to the Verdi household castle. Kranz's mother is there, wondering what she's going to do. She couldn't let that damn Sion roam free and be a danger to her son. That's when Eshel shows up and calls for his mother. He says that if something is bothering her, she just has to tell him. But she leaves, saying she's fine and nothing is troubling her. However, as soon as she closes the door, he tells Kellen to report the information. The man says they found the bodies of some knights dead in the forest, and the only survivor went to the capital with Sion. He's certain that the person who ordered the attack was Duchess Margaret. Moreover, they lost contact with an agent at the academy who had been passing information about Sion. Eshel says that apparently the man hasn't learned anything from his brother. The fool is trembling, realizing the man is disappointed. He's certain Eshel isn't the kind of person to keep those who disappoint him around. Afraid of being eliminated, he yells, saying he'll check it out himself. He swears he'll never let him down again. Eshel places a hand on the man and says it's impressive how passionate Kellen is about his work. And with that, he leaves, saying he's sure his brother is hiding something. Back at the academy, Sirika is rushing in. Our boy is there with Karam, bottle-feeding the dragon, asking what she's doing there. Sirika wants to know why there's a baby in the dormitory. The protagonist says it's a pretty long story. She interrupts him and says the explanation can wait because they have important matters to resolve. She says it looks like our boy has been busy causing trouble. She then shows him that a duel between him and Seth has been approved, and she asks why he's not trying to keep a low profile and is doing something like this. Was the boy trying to attract as much attention as possible? Shan is confused that the guy actually submitted a formal document to create this duel. Karam asks what the problem is. It's just 2 11-year-old kids playing around. However, our boy knows that Seth isn't just any 11-year-old and asks when the fight will take place. That's when he's told it's in 2 hours. And there he is thinking that this was way too soon. Stith welcomes him, saying he's been waiting for this moment. However, our boy doesn't seem too excited. Seth says he wanted a free-for-all fight, but they only allow fencing and magic, and he asks if Xian, by any chance, will be using magic. As soon as our boy says no, Seth says he truly doesn't disappoint. He jumps in for a slash, saying he wants to see what Xian can do with the sword. The protagonist, however, seems calm. He's just thinking about how fast this guy is considering his size. But attacks that rely purely on physical strength are easy to avoid. With a simple sword movement, Seth's attack is deflected to the ground. Shan starts to move, saying that an opponent like this is defeated with sophistication and precision. However, the prince says he won't give him any chances. As swords clash and Seth feels the pressure in his arm. Shen was able to use a good amount of his strength to counterattack. And how is he blocking such a big sword with just a rapier? Suddenly, Seth is behind him and goes for a hit to the back of his neck. But out of nowhere, Cyan sheathes his sword and grabs the fool by the legs. The poor guy is confused, wondering if this bastard has eyes on the back of his head. But when he's about to hit the ground, he manages to place his hand down and barely saves himself. He uses the momentum to almost land a kick on Xian. Seth is impressed that the guy found a counterattack in that situation. The audience is wide-eyed, wondering if these two are even human. Seth is just smiling. He starts laughing, saying that he really was defeated with the sword. But now he's going to put everything on the line and do whatever it takes to win. Shan says he's looking forward to it, though he's thinking this is going to be exhausting. However, Seth insists, saying he hopes Shan will also come at him with everything he's got. His aura begins to expand, shattering the ground beneath him. He calls out Shin's name and says now it's begun. A bearded man in the audience says they finally started using magic. Students competing in both fencing and magic showed they had a good spirit. Sirika, standing next to him, says it's clear Xian was the winner in fencing. They know Seth has an A-class physique, while Cyan is S-class. The fencing match was determined from the start. However, physical aptitude is just a basic element when it comes to high-level magic. And as far as he knows, Seth has level 3 magic, a highest among freshmen. He wants to see how Xian will respond to this. Sirika, however, is fuming, wondering why this bastard is drawing so much attention. Suddenly, a hand starts emerging from the ground. It's Seth's death grip. He prepares a punch and Xian realizes it's time to use magic. He easily dodges the first attack. However, he seems to trip over something in Seth's movement, who warns him he won't escape. A sequence of attacks continues coming his way, but he easily avoids them. Seth then activates Desert Fang. A mound of sand erupts from the ground and suddenly it seems Xian is surrounded. He knows Seth has at least 3-star magic. The poor guy took a Gara Classic, but as soon as the smoke cleared, there he was, perfectly fine. One of the things he realized is that Seth would easily use level 4 magic. The problem is that defeating him would put him in a complicated situation. Seth then asks how long Cyan plans to keep dodging attacks. Obviously, Xian wonders if Seth expected him to just take a hit to the face. Angry, Seth says Xian is just a student and a warrior should never run from their destiny. Confused, Xian says that, as far as he knows, both of them are students. At that, the idiot starts going crazy and activates a sandstorm. The old man is watching closely while Sirika looks scared, wondering why he's using level 4 magic. Seth sends an attack towards Xian, saying he wants to see if he can dodge this one. Our boy just stands there and says, "Fine, I'll take this one." Meanwhile, someone grabs the bottle. It's Yelkin, saying it's a good thing he has experience raising kids. He had a tough time taking care of all his younger siblings, but he never imagined that experience would save him now. He then calls for the princess and says it's time to eat. But suddenly, he's startled. The little girl seems to have grown up quite a bit already. Back in the sand during Seth's attack, it was enclosed in a blue globe. However, the globe was starting to crack. Oh, I get it. It was protection so that no one else would get hurt during the battle, but now it's breaking. Oscar, the one responsible for the barrier, can't understand how a student is doing all this. Sirika tells the chancellor that it's better to cancel the match. However, he says he wants to wait because he feels something is about to happen. Shan then activates a secret art of the Void Sphere. And of course, Sirika didn't want him to use something like that. Suddenly, Seth's sandstorm seems to be absorbed. The professor laughs, saying the boy is quite impressive. Meanwhile, Sirika wants to kill him for letting everyone see this. Seth's attack keeps getting absorbed and the sphere continues to grow. Until, after a while, Xian closes his hand. The fool is left confused, not understanding what just happened. And the people in the audience wonder where all that power disappeared to. No one has any idea what that black energy sphere in the middle of the arena was. Shin asks Seth if he still wants to continue. But the poor guy is exhausted. He falls to his knees, saying he can't believe he lost. He lost in fencing and lost in magic. At that moment, he was pure depression. Poor Xian starts feeling bad for crushing the guy's spirit. But then Seth punches the ground and says it's fine. He was getting tired of beating weaklings anyway. Now his motivation to keep training is restored. He then extends his hand and says he's looking forward to training with him again. And next time, Xian will have to accept the challenge. Shen, of course, says no. He's not interested at all. The scene shifts to Xian talking about how dragons develop faster than other creatures. But overnight, it seems like the child had turned 6 years old. The girl is already welcoming Daddy. Shan knows that at this rate, she'll soon be his age. He tries to explain that he just took his eyes off her for a second, and suddenly this happened. Man, he knows it's going to be tough to raise her there. Someone mentions that there will come a time when he won't be able to hide her anymore. It's Sirika, who says she can help hide the magic sword. But a dragon like this is something completely different, especially since he keeps drawing attention to himself like today. Karam is lying on the couch, peacefully sleeping, not wanting to deal with anything. They're just looking at the little dragon girl, saying she's growing terribly fast. How did she get this big while he was out fighting? Sirika then says she knew he was up to something, but bringing a creature like that home is completely different. Our boy tells her not to worry because Yulkin said he'd take care of the girl. Besides, the place already has a barrier, so she and Karam wouldn't be detected. That's when Sirika hands him a letter and says this will only be possible if he stops causing trouble. Our boy looks at it and says it's a pretty bad reward for winning that match. But she just leaves the room, telling him to stop getting into trouble. It would be terrible if he ended up angering a certain someone. Yulka then asks what it was, and our boy says it's a warning. They want to expel them for bad conduct. The little dragon girl says that can't happen to Daddy, otherwise everyone will end up begging on the streets. Shan is confused, wondering when this brat learned to say things like that. He pets her and says they don't need to worry for now. Yulkin says it would be dangerous if he were forced to return home. Shen replies that they don't need to worry because it was just a small competition. After all, he noticed that the letter came directly from the Chancellor and not the administration. That means the guy wants to talk to him. I don't know if this was in the past, but I believe it was. The Chancellor asks if he really wants to join the Order of Light. Shan agrees, and the man says he doesn't think it suits him. Seeing the boy's face, he says he's sure Shan knows this. So he decides to give him some advice and tells him to keep it in his heart. He's certain that Shan would find no benefit in joining the Order of Light. His fate would be suffering or something even worse. However, one thing is for sure, joining that order wouldn't be worth it, because that's what life is like for a puppet. That was the conversation he had with the old man in his past life when he was called there once, which makes him wonder what curse the old man will throw at him this time. Yulkin then comments that the child might deserve to have a name. They can't keep calling her just Little One. Shan just responds with Nana. Yulkin was about to tell him to think a bit more, but the girl says it's perfect. She likes the name Nana because it's the same backward and forward. And besides, now she's Nanavert. She's spinning around Cian, who wonders how she knows his last name. The scene then shifts to the Chancellor's office. He's thoughtful and impatient because of Cian verdict. He already knew the boy had great potential, but he saw him absorb a rank 4 magic attack all by himself. Someone with that much power is something to be feared. But the strangest part is that Cian didn't even seem to be trying, which makes him wonder what this boy is truly capable of. Shan knows that Campbell was the teacher of Emperor Dione and Princess Diana. He's one of the few 9-star mages on this continent, and after Princess Diana's death, he decided to dedicate himself to cultivating new talents at the Royal Academy. But what confuses Cian is that he always saw this man as a pacifist. So why in his past life did he suddenly get involved in the Empire's throne affairs? He stops for a second and is sure of it. That guy was as treacherous as ever. Knocking on the wall, he notices it has a barrier. Not just a barrier, but a 9-star one, even though he knew Sam was coming. It seemed the man wanted to test him, and Shan was ready to pass that test. Candle was smiling, curious to see how the boy would deal with the barrier. All right, fine, Shan mutters as he crashes through the window. He lands in front of him and calls out to the Chancellor, introducing himself as Cian Verdict, a first-year student. The old man notices that the boy did the obvious, but he has to admit defeat. He then asks if Shan received the warning about the competition. Shan says yes, he got the Chancellor's notice, but he became certain of some things as soon as he saw the barrier. That so-called warning was just an excuse to test him. Candle says that's correct and that his method was quite common, but undeniably effective. With that aside, he says he won't resign the warning unless Shan convinces him. Shan then asks if he can pose a question. He inquires whether the old man values the Empire's prosperity or his family's honor more. Candle remains silent. He says it's a bold question, but neither is Shan's concern. Shan then asks if, hypothetically, Emperor Dione and the third princess showed ambition for the throne, would Candle stand idly by and not support either side? The old man replies that such boldness is not only audacity but also recklessness. Meanwhile, Shan recalls that in his past life, this man told him he'd become a puppet. But at this moment, Candle was no different. Shan remembers that in his past life, the Chancellor played an important role in helping Prince Luenel ascend to the throne, a prince known for his violent nature and for killing all his siblings. The day the Chancellor questioned those deaths, he was imprisoned for treason. Now, Candle slams his hand on the table and says it doesn't make sense. He asks Shan if he truly believes that the peace built over the past 100 years could crumble so easily. He thought the boy was talented, but apparently he's just an ignorant child. Shan ignores the insult and says that both Candle's daughter and the second princess have already died from illness. Furthermore, the third and fourth princes are forces that cannot be ignored. And Empress Cassandra's faction is beginning to hunger for power. They would stop at nothing to seize control of the empire. After all, the peace in this land is barely holding together. And when it all collapses, it will also mean the end of the academy. Candle is stunned that an 11-year-old knows the entire current political landscape. He then asks what Shan's intention was in saying all this. Shan says he's there to propose a deal that will help Candle. Peace for his family and peace for the academy. and all he asks in return is for Candle to remove the warning. The old man laughs, making Shan feel like a fool. Candle summons a magic circle and asks what power Shan plans to use to resolve this. He signals downward with his finger, saying Shan will be crushed along with his arrogance. Chains of judgment then appear and pull Shan upward. Shan immediately realizes the Chancellor wants to test him again. Candle says that while Shan may be powerful, escaping such a skill won't be easy. He remarks that the boy is getting too full of himself. However, Shan asks for permission to show what he's capable of. At that moment, the old man is startled. Shan activates an adaptation of the Void Sphere. The chains seem to be getting swallowed up. The old man is in disbelief that a level 1 skill is consuming his magic. The energy keeps being absorbed and the sphere continues to grow. Meanwhile, the old man wonders about the limits of this boy's potential. Finally, the attack dissipates along with the chains. Shan asks if he's proven enough. Candle immediately agrees to remove the warning but says he doubts that's all Shan wants. Our boy says it is because all he wants is for there to be no problems at the academy. The old man asks if he's sure and Shan says yes. The truth is, Shan really doesn't want to see the academy collapse again. Meanwhile, in the city at sunset, someone mentions they bought a lot of sweets, but that's what happens when there's a child at home. It's Yulkin, who's happy just imagining Mana eating all of it. Suddenly, he feels a chill. The place is eerily quiet and he assumes it's just his imagination. He slowly walks, looking around, until he senses a presence in the shadows and demands it show itself. Someone steps out of the darkness and Yulkin is so startled he drops the sweets. Man, I thought you'd react, but the poor guy just disappeared. Shan had promised the Chancellor that he'd attend all classes after leaving the meeting. But at this moment, he's tired and bored. It's tedious to study things he learned over 30 years ago. Since he doesn't have any missions to do, he considers going to train. But then someone appears behind him, asking where he thinks he's going. It's Erin, who says the lesson isn't over yet. Shan lies, saying he's just going to the bathroom. But she calls him a liar because she knows that's not the direction to the bathroom. Meanwhile, a guy named Regimus is standing behind her, calling her Lady Erin. Our boy then asks if she's allowing him to address her by her personal name. She tells him to stop changing the subject but says yes, but only in private. However, she wants to know why Shan is still so formal with her. Our boy responds that since she's royalty and he's just a simple citizen of the Empire, he can't be too familiar with her. Someone then approaches in the middle of their discussion. He calls out to Erin, and suddenly she looks startled. Shan glances to the side and sees a guy on the stairs, saying it's been a long time since they've seen each other. It's Brother Fabian and Brother Nairobian. Apparently, someone really likes Bien. Erin greets them, and they ask why she's surrounded by commoners or if those people are her servants. Shan knows these guys from House Nefello always belittle the princess. Then they ask if he's the so-called boy Shan Vert. Our boy simply says it's a pleasure to meet them and introduces himself as the young Mist of House Verdi. The guys reply that he doesn't need to introduce himself because they saw the duel, and it was incredible. Surely he'd be invited to the next social gathering. They say they should talk more and shouldn't remain strangers. Shan notices that Erin is being completely ignored. The guys place their hands on his shoulder and tell him this is an opportunity few people get. Erin just stands there silent, until Nairobian puts his hand on her shoulder and says that obviously someone like her shouldn't get any ideas. The so-called princess should know her place. As the guys leave, Regimus asks if they really are princes. Erin confirms they are and remarks, as the saying goes, blood is thicker than water. But Shan says he doesn't think that's what's happening in this situation. To them, it's clear she's worse than a stranger. Water or blood are insignificant when it comes to power. That's what she needs to understand. The fact that they act so coldly toward her shows that they have some fear or apprehension. He tells her not to be shaken by it, but the poor girl is already blushing. Our boy leaves while she stands there, blushing from his words of encouragement. Back at home, Nana is messing up the bed. But Shan finds it odd that neither Karam nor Yulkin is around. Karam then appears, asking if he doesn't see that the little girl is sleeping. Then she asks what he wants from her. Our boy tells her to find Yulkin. She looks confused and asks if he thinks she's some kind of dog to go hunting for him. But suddenly, she starts sniffing the air. She says she smells blood. In a nearby alley, Yulkin is thrown to the ground. The attackers laugh, and a blonde man says he should have responded as soon as they called him. Now things had gotten complicated. It's ironic that the boy only had one night and he was so bad at his job. The man then announces that it's time to cut Yulkin into pieces and deliver him as a gift to their master. He could thank his boss later. This was the price he would pay for messing with Barrett Rumil. However, from the ground, Yulkin simply says, all right. The guy is confused and asks what he means. Even while battered, Yulkin tells them to just get it over with. Barrett then tells everyone that apparently Yulkin has lost his mind. It's time to finish this by killing him. But suddenly, from above the alley, someone asks what they're doing. Man, if it's who I think it is, I guess you're all headed to your next life. It's him and Shan with Karam in hand, saying that apparently this was Rumil's doing. From the ground, Yulkin sees it's our boy. And upon seeing the state of his friend, Cyan says, looks like they beat up my poor boy. Barrett, however, seems excited that Cyan showed up on his own. This was exactly what he had planned. Shan simply replies that he's looking forward to seeing what Barrett will do. He charges at the men, activating the 8th stance of the Violent Barrage. It's a tap to one guy's neck, a flick to another's forehead. Everyone in the alley starts getting thrown around. Barrett can't believe that all the men he hired couldn't beat this kid. What kind of monster is this, he wonders. He starts cursing Cian Vert and says he'll kill him. But before he can use his spell, he takes a knee to the stomach and is thrown far away. The poor guy hits the wall and Cian says Barrett hasn't changed one bit. He asks if tormenting the weak is really so fun for him. Barrett, however, says what he does in his free time is none of Shan's business. And he asks, "What are you going to do, kill me?" Shan remembers that in his past life, this guy, the eldest son of House Rumil, became the strongest figure in the kingdom of Garan. He was an infamous figure who beat his own servants to death and burned small animals just for entertainment, until one day his madness crossed the line. He mercilessly killed a classmate and claimed he was just practicing magic. This exposed him, and the Purge Squad gave Shan a mission to eliminate him. But that day, Shan would never forget what he saw upon arriving at that mansion. In the man's basement was a pile of servant corpses. Naturally, Cian tortured him to give him a painful death. But even while suffering, the man kept smiling and telling Shan to just end it. That was because he was already bored with his own games. Now Cian realizes that killing that guy in the past wasn't a punishment for a monster like him. After all, he had already done everything he wanted. It was an entirely inadequate price considering the lives he had affected. With this, Cian grabs Barrett by the mouth and summons a mana orb. Barrett asks what he's doing, and warns that Cian won't get away with this because he's the future of the kingdom of Garan. But Shan just grabs Barrett by the throat and says he sure loves to talk a lot. He warns that Barrett's biggest mistake wasn't insulting him. He could say whatever he wanted behind his back, but what he should never have done was hurt one of Shan's servants. Barrett starts writhing in pain on the ground. A strange purple aura begins emanating from him, and someone is observing everything from above. Oh, it's Echel's informant, who says he urgently needs to report this. Surely this would interfere with his plans. But then Sirika places a knife to his neck and says she found the one tailing her boy. Our boy approaches Yelkin, who apologizes, saying he brought shame to his lord. Seeing him beaten up, Cian thinks it's pitiful to see the poor guy in such a state. He then asks why Yelkin, as his servant, involved himself in a fight he knew he couldn't win. Was that his idea of loyalty? Shan says he understands what Yelkin wanted to achieve, but the best choice in this case was to flee. He didn't need Yelkin to risk his life in the name of loyalty, so he shouldn't do anything so reckless again. Poor Yelkin, broken and defeated, simply apologizes. Our boy then says the leader can show themselves. Suddenly, a group of Purge Squad members appears, asking if it was that obvious. Shan says it's obvious when so many people show up together. Then Sirika appears, saying she brought a big present. She throws Kellen to the ground, and Shan immediately recognizes him as the one who had been following him recently. She seems impressed that Shan already had information about him. He says he kind of already had an idea. She responds that, as always, he's highly capable. Not only is he far stronger than any other assassin of the Mist, but he's also able to negotiate directly with the Chancellor. In addition, he has the mental fortitude to wield the magic sword. He truly deserves the title of successor, but the problem is he keeps causing trouble. Shan just replies that he took note of all that, but he warns that he will always refuse to be just a victim. Whoever harms those close to him will be crushed. Sirika interprets this as him saying he'll protect those around him and says she understands. She then says she's leaving and trusts the successor's decisions. But before that, she reminds him not to forget to deal with that person. Kellen then asks what Sam plans to do with him and if he's going to kill him. But Shan says he's learned that death is too easy. Desperate, Kellen says that if Shan thinks he's going to talk, he can forget it. But Shan replies that he already knows Kellen is the right-hand man of Eshel. The poor guy is left wondering how this brat already has that information. But Shan remembers Kellen very well from his past life, always by his brother's side, and the envy he felt when they were close during the wars. However, considering everything, Kellen really is a problem. Perhaps the best option would be to kill him now. The problem is that doing so would send certain information to his brother, which means it's time to use this guy to execute his plan. Kellen, desperate, asks what Shan is doing. Shan activates a psychic clone creation. A cloud of mist begins to pour into Kellen's mouth and eyes. The scene then changes completely to a castle. A man rushes in and attacking Erin. She manages to parry and says he'll have to do better than that. But the man appears behind her and places a sword at her neck, announcing his victory. Erin tells him to stop calling her Your Highness and admits she really can't beat him. He apologizes to Your Highness, and she tells him to learn to just say, Erin. But then they hear a heavy strike nearby, and Erin says someone is training hard. It's Yelkin, taking a punch to the stomach, a kick to the back of the knee, and being thrown far away. Shan is impressed that, considering he's just a regular worker, Yelkin can take quite a beating. Moreover, he has good stamina, so maybe in the future, he could be useful. Shan asks if Yelkin is okay, and spitting blood, he says he's perfectly fine. Shan knows the training has to be tough because at any moment, he could be attacked like what happened with Barrett. Yelkin then comments on Kellen and asks if he won't cause any problems, to which Syan says there's nothing to worry about because now Kellen is on their side. The scene then shifts back to the moment when Cian absorbed that energy. Yelkin was right there watching everything as the body fell to the ground. Shan thought to himself that it was exhausting since he hadn't done that in a long time. The Shadow Psyche is a level 9 dark attribute. It creates a new shadow personality in the target, allowing him to control them. Even in his past life, he only used it once. He then asks Kellen to introduce himself. Kellen replies that he's Kellen Digos, a guardian of the Knight of Elias. He had received orders to come to this city and observe Lord Xian. Cheyenne is pleased with how obedient Kellen is and asks who his master is. Kellen says he originally served Lord Eshel, but now he wishes to serve Lord Xian. Our boy says that's fine. Kellen's first mission is to return to Eshel and report everything Xian instructs. Kellen agrees and says he will obey the commands. Kellen looks motivated and Xian finds it terrifying how well that spell worked. Eren then shows up and asks if he's training with the knight. Our boy humbly replies that yes, he is, but honestly he could have just said he's there to play cards. She then says she's been practicing fencing with Regimus ever since what happened recently. Shane remembers what she's referring to. Everyone found out that Barret Rumil was found beaten up in front of the infirmary. But the worst part wasn't that he couldn't talk about what happened. It was that he could no longer use magic. What Xian finds strange is Regimus' reaction. He thought Regimus would be happy about what happened. Suddenly, Nana comes flying through the sky, yelling for our boy. Or rather, she's literally flying. Both of them look up and Xian asks what's going on, considering he left Karam in charge. Of course the lazy one was sleeping, wasn't she? Eren grabs Nana, wanting to know where this crazy kid came from. Meanwhile, Nana keeps shouting that she found her dad. Eren is confused by this whole dad thing, but Nana is clearly pointing at Xian. Now the girl is stunned, wanting to know since when and with whom this happened. While Xian the fool has no idea how he's going to explain himself. Some time passes and he's already explained everything. Eren feels relieved to discover that she's not his biological daughter. Still, she didn't expect the boy to have such a soft side. On the other hand, Yelkin is worried because they'd be expelled from the academy if this was discovered. But Eren tells him not to worry. She would never tell anyone. Shine is impressed by her promise. Man, you should have made her promise before explaining everything, right? Eren looks up and reassures him, saying not to worry. After all, it's not like she has any other friends besides them. Way to ruin the positive vibe, Eren. Shane asks why she made the promise, and she says it's because she feels sorry for the girl. Someone who is neither dragon nor human wouldn't be accepted anywhere. She was lucky enough to find him. But with that said, Eren declares that she'll have to visit his dorm a few times. Not to see him, of course. She wants to visit Nana. Shan says he's fine with that, but it all has to be kept completely secret. The fool Eren lies awake, thinking this is a secret just between the two of them. Actually, it's a secret between 5 of them, but okay. With that, she leaves and Regimus waves goodbye. But as Eren looks back, she feels something strange. She's all giddy, realizing she seems to have gotten closer to Xian. Back at home, though, Xian still gets scolded by Karam. She tells him to just spill everything to her, including that he has a magic sword. Xian tells her to shut up, pointing out that all this happened because she was sleeping. Yelkin suggests they should take Nana out more often. Maybe she ran off because she's been cooped up for too long. Xian says it might not be a bad idea. Then we see 2 people flying with wings. A white-haired man notices something strange and stops midair. The woman beside him asks what's wrong, addressing him as Lord Lucian. He replies that he smells weakness. He asks where they are, and she says they haven't reached Ruin yet, but are close. Lucian realizes they're near the Ruin Academy. He says they'll have to delay their return because he senses the presence of something that isn't meant to exist. Meanwhile, in an open area near Ruin, Yelkin is warning Nana not to wander too far because it's dangerous. Cheyenne thinks this was a good idea since she's enjoying herself and are far from Ruin. Here, his secret is safe enough and she can get some fresh air. Karam teases him, saying he seems to be enjoying playing house, suggesting they make the princess the mother. But suddenly, they all feel a chill. Karam warns immediately that something is approaching. Lucian says, that's abominable. Yelkin shouts for Nana to be careful, barely saving her from a laser. Cheyenne sees that the 2 are safe and tells everyone to stay behind him. The 2 descend from the sky, and they wonder what they're doing there. Dragons, superior beings, and 2 of them at that. Lucian then says he now knows where the stench is coming from. The existence of that thing is revolting. The red-haired dragon, Catalina, asks how such an abomination came to be. She questions if Xian is the owner of this mixed race and how he also possesses a magic sword. Karam is furious at being treated like a mere object, but Catalina tells her to be quiet since she's just a human's toy now. Hermia, however, retorts, asking if Catalina is looking to die. As Hermia prepares to attack, Lucian stops her. He explains that he has no interest in this fight as they dislike fighting inferior creatures. However, they must take the mixed-breed girl with them. A half-human, half-dragon existence would surely make for valuable studies. They say that if they hand her over, everyone's lives will be spared. But Cheyenne tells them all to shut up. Lucian can't believe the audacity of the boy. Cheyenne repeats, telling the winged crocodile to keep quiet. Obviously, Lucian loses his temper. He nearly fires a laser at Xian, but Yelkin calls out to him, telling him not to worry and to stay behind him. However, it's undeniable that the technique Lucian used was terrifying. Lucian says that's why dealing with inferior creatures is so annoying. Shan activates the 9th stance of the Black Mist, manifesting the magic sword. Every time I mess up pronouncing these massive spell names. But there he is, our boy, looking like a burnt matchstick, ready to face them. Both dragons recognize that as the power of the exiled. Lucian remarks that the day is full of surprises, but in the end, boy is nothing more than an inferior creature. But before he can finish the thought, Cyan is already at his side, leaving Lucian startled, not knowing when Xian appeared. He takes a flurry of stabs and is thrown back. Lucian says the boy is a reckless human and charges at him with a slash. He extends his hand, activating a shockwave. A magic circle forms above Xian, and he takes the attack head-on. But Xian activates one of the smoke techniques, reappearing behind Lucian. He conjures another storm of blades, forcing Catalina to step in for defense. Lucian tells her not to interfere, saying this fight isn't hers. But she simply reassures him, saying he has nothing to worry about. There's no way she could lose. The flame barrier she's using has been refined for over 1,000 years, so it's impossible for a human who doesn't even live 100 years to break through. Until Xian activates the 8 petals. Are we back at Manhwa? He delivers 8 slashes to the barrier, shattering it completely. Catalina is left wondering how that's possible. Before she can recover, Xian delivers a clean slash through her. Did she disintegrate? Did she actually die? Man, is Xian pissed off. Lucian, confused, asks what Xian is. Someone with mere powers of the mist shouldn't be this strong. He demands an answer, but when Xian doesn't reply, Lucian says that, in that case, he'll treat him as a serious opponent. Xian notices that Lucian is activating the polymorph ability. From the magic circle, the dragon begins to emerge. The man is reverting from his human form to his natural one. Sharp eyes, massive wings, the beast is here. Lucian lets out a deafening roar in Xian's face, but Xian leaps towards him, saying he knows this is the moment when Lucian is most vulnerable. He's already above the dragon's wings, and Lucian wonders what he's thinking. Noticing Xian's position, Lucian realizes the boy knows about the vulnerabilities of the polymorph ability. Xian strikes directly in the middle of Lucian's forehead. Lucian calls him reckless, but is already thinking about escaping. But Xian smirks and says it's too late. He activates the technique Giant Tree Root directly into Lucian's head. A wave of black energy spreads through the dragon's body. Lucian rises in the sky, and sometime later we see Yelkin calling out to Xian. Yelkin looks horrified and covers Nana's eyes. What's this? Xian has already cut up the dragon and is roasting its meat. He says dragon meat is precious, and Nana exclaims that she wants some. Meanwhile, Xian's brother hears about Xian working with a mysterious crew. Kellen explains that the agents they sent were killed by this unknown force. Ekel asks if that's everything, and Kellen confirms it. Ekel finds it odd. When this guy left, he was filled with anxiety and fear. But now he seems calm and collected, like a completely different person. Ekel simply says he understands, but has one more question to ask. When Ekel stares at him, Kellen realizes Ekel has caught on to something. Suddenly, Kellen places his hand on his chest and says, "May the grace of Lumendel be with me." Ekel smiles and thanks him for the response. He tells Kellen not to worry too much, but advises him to be cautious. Kellen, however, knows there's no turning back now that Ekel is starting to suspect him. At the very least, he needs to ensure he doesn't become a problem for Xian. As he leaves the room, Kellen runs into a maid. He remembers that she was the girl who took care of Xian. He asks what she's doing there, and Ekel replies that he invited her. He asks if her name is Emily, and she confirms it. Then Ekel says he wanted to ask her for a little favor. "Girl, you better run while you still can." Meanwhile, at the dragon's base, someone asks if it's true that Lucian and Catalina disappeared. Another confirms that their energy vanished, and now there's a gap in their ranks. But it's strange for the energy of an 8-star dragon to vanish like that. Judging by their empty stones, it's clear they were likely defeated. However, upon flying over the area, all they found were remnants of a battle. One of them asks how it's possible for someone to kill those two and leave no trace of magic. The green crystal says it's only possible if the killer has the dark attribute. But as far as he knows, there's only one person in Candle strong enough to kill those two. However, that person doesn't possess the dark attribute. This means there's someone powerful out there they know nothing about. The man says the only person at the Royal Academy with the dark attribute is a boy named San Vert. Moreover, there are rumors that he encountered a dark dragon at the front lines and survived. If that's true, he might also be involved in the disappearance of the 2 dragons. The green crystal says this is a strange coincidence and advises keeping an eye on him. He instructs someone named Luna Rainraver to send his granddaughter. It's fascinating to see this conversation among the crystals and still have no idea who's who. Meanwhile, back at the royal dormitory, Erin, of course, wastes no time visiting our boy and even brings a cake. She says it's a gift for Nana, who's thrilled. But man, she didn't just bring a cake. She brought an entire cart full of presents. Sitting at the table, San thinks that, at least for now, they're getting along well and things are calm. But if dragons can truly detect Nana, it's only a matter of time before they attack again. However, he won't allow anyone close to him to be harmed. In this life, he has decided to live for himself. And of course, to take down Ekel and all his plans. Suddenly, Erin looks over her shoulder and asks why he has such a big smile on his face, wondering what's making him so happy. He responds that he just had a great idea. The scene shifts to the garden of House Verde. Someone says it's the first time they've seen him since graduation. It's Prince Luvinal Sevelos, who comments on how great Ekel looks. The fool replies that it's all thanks to his majesty. The prince then tells him to stop wasting time on the outskirts. He's heard that Ellie is moving across the continent. Axel smiles and says he's very concerned about what she's doing. But the prince asks if he isn't worried that she might be a threat to him. Axel, irritated, asks if the prince isn't lacking discretion. But Sevelos says there's no need for discretion between the two of them. He then asks if Shion isn't his brother, explaining that his father is interested in the boy and is even considering marrying him off to Eren. He doesn't understand why Axel would care about this, considering that girl is useless. Axel, however, tells him not to be so quick to judge. She might gain some influence and interest, becoming useful. The prince replies that he likes how productive their conversations always are. Their relationship is quite peculiar, huh? Might as well end with a kiss. The prince even offers Axel a glass of wine, but Axel notices that the prince's knight seems to be someone new he's never heard of. The prince explains that it's a gem he found while passing through the slums. Axel examines the man and remarks that even among gems, this one appears to be of the highest quality. The man introduces himself as Boris Lehelm and offers his services. Suddenly, 2 years have passed just like that. Shad mentions that he kept a low profile, and just as he felt he had adjusted to the academy, that's when Ellis returned. In another part of the castle, someone knocks on a door. Ellis had come to visit Candle, who remarks that it's been a long time since they last saw each other. He asks if she enjoyed her trip. She says yes, mentioning that she visited the city of Pruina. The Chancellor comments that it's a place where humans aren't very welcome. She explains that it took her an entire year just to start adjusting. However, she wanted to understand the harmony they always spoke about. He always said that wherever she went, prosperity would follow. That's why she's careful about where she belongs. Candle doesn't fully understand her point, but apparently he gets the gist as he says she seems to have reached some conclusion. She confirms this, stating that she wants to join the Order of Light. The Chancellor remarks that she seems intent on preserving the family name. She replies that it's a burden someone has to bear. She's concerned about her younger siblings, especially Xian, whom she describes as extremely shy. The old man bursts into laughter, leaving her confused. He comments that the idea of Xian being shy is quite amusing. That's when the boy himself appears, saying it's very insensitive of their dear Chancellor. They look back and see our boy. I thought he might show up looking older, but nope, he just got taller. He looks like he's holding in a fart, but says he missed his sister. Walking outside, she remarks that he's changed a lot since the last time they saw each other. He's already as tall as her and will soon surpass her height. He jokes, saying she must have gotten shorter, but she tells him to stop making up lies. It was July 2, 1988, a date he would always remember, because it was the last time he saw Elise alive. What's going to happen, man? She mentions that the semester has ended and asks if he'll visit home. He replies that without her there, there's no one to welcome him. She seems confused and asks if that's why he hasn't gone back in 2 years. He knows the real reason is Eggshel's presence, and of course the Duchess, who wants to kill him at any moment. The worst part is that their father does nothing to stop it. Going home would basically be suicide. Stop lying, kid. You killed 2 dragons and are afraid of a Duchess? But okay, I believe the Eschel part. Elise then asks if he gets along with Kranz. He replies that it's impossible. She asks why, and he says it's obvious, because of the way Kranz always treated him, always trying to take his life. Apparently, Elise had no idea about any of this. Yelkin steps forward and confirms the information. Shen explains that Yelkin is his guardian. Poor Elise just now realizes this, thinking he was just some random lunatic following them around because he was so weak. Sometime later, she finally understands what happened. She mentions that while all this was going on, she was in Pruina, completely unaware. Shan tells her not to worry as the problem was created by the Duchess and Kranz. They are the true villains. But Elise's expression changes. He asks her what's wrong and she suddenly snaps out of it. Shan then asks Elise if she's told anyone else about this and she says it's all in the past. Kranz never showed any remorse. Suddenly, Elise pulls him into a hug. She cries, saying he doesn't have to carry such a heavy burden alone. Whenever he needs, he can count on her. Shan says that from now on, he will protect her. But suddenly, she says she can't stay any longer because something has come up and she needs to handle it. However, she tells him to take care of himself while she's away. At this moment, Yelkin feels something strange. Elise gives him a tight hug, thanking him for taking care of her brother. Yelkin was about to protest, saying he doesn't take care of this troublemaker, but Shan quickly tells him to stay quiet. Some time passes and it seems like Elise is leaving. Even though Shan is smiling, he knows it's been a long time since he's seen her this serious. The scene shifts to the past, where Cyan is taking hits from a sword. It's Kranz asking if he's already tired and calling him a motherless bastard, ordering him to get up. Shannon, frustrated, says there's no need for him to say such things since he's already won. But he takes another hit to the face and Kranz tells him to shut up. The beatdown continues until someone appears and tells Kranz to stop. It's Elise who demands to know what he thinks he's doing and orders him to apologize to Cyan immediately. Shan knows from the look on her face that this is going to cause chaos at home. But maybe this is a good way to reveal the truth about the people around her and somehow change her destiny. Someone delivers a few letters to him saying they're for him. Yelkin mentions that one is from the academy and another is from the cleaning staff. Shan grabs the black letter and says the other one must be from the imperial court. Yelkin takes a look and confirms it. Both he and Karam seem interested in what the court wants. Shin simply says it's an invitation to a banquet. And the black letter, of course, is an assassination order. It's for the death of a man named Dranian Nephelis, set to happen at the banquet. This shocked the entire kingdom, since the man is the emperor's younger brother. Karam asks if he's going, and San says yes, because there are things he needs to handle. In the meantime, he wonders why that Dan woman gave him this mission, especially since in his past life it was assigned to someone else. Karam notices that the banquet invitation came directly from Aaron. She jokes that Shingen finally received a love letter. He immediately activates sword manipulation and the blade nearly hits her, making her fall face first to the ground. At that moment, someone calls out, saying, "Dad, I'm hungry." Yelkin looks shocked and Cheyenne asks what's wrong, but his own expression changes immediately. Let's not mention it, but yeah, she's grown. That's all. The scene shifts to the exterior of a castle, where someone runs to open the door. It's Miss Elise, apparently arriving at House Vert. The butlers comment on her return, but she just wants to know where the Duchess is. The Duchess is calmly reading a book until she hears a loud knock at the door. Elise storms in, and as the Duchess greets her, saying it's been a long time and asking how she's been, Elise raises her hand and slaps her hard across the face. Everyone is shocked, and a butler asks why the guards aren't doing their job. From the floor, the Duchess asks if Ellis has lost her mind. But Ellis responds that it's the Duchess who should be asking herself that question, especially since she tried to kill Cian. The Duchess is alarmed that Ellis knows about this. Of course, she denies it, claiming she'd never do such a thing, and asks if Ellis has any evidence. Ellis says that by asking for evidence, the Duchess made everything perfectly clear. As the Duchess orders the guards to act, she continues screaming, asking what they're waiting for and commanding them to restrain Elise. The guards leap toward Elise, apologizing as they do. Well, this isn't going to go well for them, is it? Elise dodges the first one and knees him in the neck. She activates a spiritual magic called Undyne and takes them all down. The Duchess trembles as she watches all the guards fall in the blink of an eye. She tells Elise not to come any closer and asks why she's doing this. Elise simply responds that Shan's guardian already confessed everything. He admitted to receiving orders to kill the boy 2 years ago. The Duchess claims it's ridiculous for Elise to act based on the words of a mere servant, but Elise tells her to shut up, saying she will have to face the consequences because everything will be reported to their father. Her time is up. With that, she walks out. The Duchess, however, thinks to herself that the foolish girl still doesn't understand anything. Duke Williers had no interest in anything except that one child. She immediately sends word to him, saying she knows about the assassination attempt and asks what the problem is. Surprised, Ellis tells her father that one of his children almost died. The Duke says he won't make any excuses. He simply believed Cian would survive. Elise protests, saying it was extremely dangerous as Cian was just a child fighting 6 knights. He only survived thanks to one of them deciding to protect him. The Duke laughs and asks if she truly believes that false knight saved Cian. That man was nothing more than a simple worker. Elise questions whether he's saying Cian killed all those knights by himself. The father steps closer to Elise and remarks that she knows very little about her little brother. He hands her a letter and tells her to take a look. She asks what it is, and he explains it's an invitation to the imperial banquet. He wants her to attend in his place. It would be a good opportunity for her to relax and stop worrying so much about Cian. He's much stronger than she imagines, and soon she'll realize it. Bang, the door shuts in her face. Elise walks through the corridors, wondering how she's supposed not to worry about her 13-year-old brother. That's when someone calls out to Miss Ellis. She brightens up upon seeing Cecilia, who welcomes her back. Cecilia rushes over and hugs her, asking how she managed to stay away for so long without even writing a letter. Cecilia Lean is a knight from the elite squad of the Order of Light. From the beginning, she's been Elise's supporter, teacher, and friend. Elise then asks Cecilia what she thinks about a change of scenery. It's time for the two of them to head to the Imperial City. The scene shifts to a carriage. Inside, Nana is gazing out the window, exclaiming that she sees a little deer. The boys keep insisting that she learn how to hide her tail. She concentrates for a moment, and everything seems to disappear. Shan thinks to himself that at least his life is a bit easier when she can hide everything. He asks if she remembers what he told her. She responds that she does. Right now, she's just his maid. Still, he's nervous, sure she's going to cause some trouble. Then they hear something outside. Shan asks Yelkin what's going on, and Yelkin reports that there are some mountain bandits. Man, look at these poor fools. Kids, just go home. This won't end well for you. Yelkin, go deal with them quickly. Nana asks what's happening, and San tells her it's nothing. Before the bandit can even say anything else, Yelkin has already taken one down with a next strike. The rest of the gang shouts for their leader and leaps at Yelkin, but he remains calm, activating a sequence of consecutive slashes. Ah, I know this reference. Is he about to go bald? He sheaths his sword, and all the bandits are dead. Now he's a force to be reckoned with. With that, Sayan tells him to get back in the carriage, and Yelkin announces that they're leaving. Elsewhere, someone slams a sheet onto a desk, saying it's the list of all the banquet guests. Sirika thanks her and is asked if the plans shouldn't be postponed. Sirika responds that no, they need to go through with this because the man must die. The woman is curious about why there's such urgency to kill Dranian Nephelis. Sirika explains that he's a vile predator who uses his power to target married women. The sooner he dies, the better. And to top it off, he's her fiancé. What a plot twist. Sarika then notices someone unusual on the guest list, a person with such a fragile body that they rarely attend any classes, but an extremely rare genius with proficiency in 20% of all attributes. Luna River, the granddaughter of the master of Garen's Academy of Magic. Sarika knows Luna has been hidden from the world like a precious gem, so why is she exposing herself at this banquet? Her aide explains that it was Master Regents himself who sent her. Sarika isn't pleased, unsure of his plans. What she knows for sure is that something is bound to happen at this banquet. Of course, right? Especially since she's planning to kill her fiancé. Well, not her. She's sending our boy. The scene shifts to the city as the group arrives. Accidentally, Nana bumps into someone. The man starts scolding her, asking what she thinks she's doing, until she apologizes and asks what's wrong. Man, if you knew her age, you wouldn't be smiling like that. He takes off running. Nana remarks how nice everyone in this city is, while Cyan just wants her to stay away from that creep. But it's clear Nana's problem is that she doesn't suspect anyone. Then Yelkin points out her eyes, asking Shan to take a look. Shan immediately notices trouble. Her pupils have turned black and she says she's hungry. When that happens, she starts emitting an aura that makes her easy to locate. Cheyenne tells Yelkin to get her to a restaurant immediately. Yelkin grabs the girl and rushes off. A while later, she's already devoured about 80 plates. Cheyenne comments that at least he brought plenty of money, but then he feels a strange mana in the air. Someone approaches, saying it's a pleasure to meet him, and asks if he's the boy named Cheyenne Verit. Here we go again. Cheyenne is confused that she knows his name and asks who she is. However, she just ignores him, sits down, and asks if he doesn't mind. Our boy. Tell her. Answer already. She then introduces herself as Luminov and says she's a new student at the academy. Cheyenne thinks he's heard that name before. He says he doesn't pay much attention to juniors, which is why he didn't know her. She says it's expected since no one is as famous as him. Meanwhile, Nana is asking Yelkin if she's a friend of Cheyenne, and he replies that he has no idea, but she doesn't seem very friendly. Luna remarks that it seems, given he's hanging out with a knight, he must be an employee and is quite close to both. He had a much more caring personality than she imagined. The protagonist just responds that he sees no reason to eat separately from them. However, he's already noticed that even though they just met, she's praising him way too much. So what's her real reason for getting close to him? At that moment, Lunav asks if he's going to the Imperial Banquet. He says yes and asks how she knows that. She replies that it's obvious when someone from the academy comes to this place. She says she's happy to know they'll meet again at the banquet because she's also invited. At that moment, Cheyenne realizes she must have some form of nobility at the very least. Suddenly, she stands up and says she, unfortunately, has to leave. But he better remember the name Lunav. And with that, she departs, asking him not to forget. That's when Cheyenne seems to remember this crazy girl. She's the granddaughter of the Grand Master of the Magic Academy, which makes him wonder if that man sent her there. He remembers that in his past life, Lunav died extremely young while still a student in that place. Some said it was because her body was very delicate, but others were sure it was due to the experiments she endured at the Magic Academy. The problem now is that he's getting involved with a lot of people he didn't know in his past life, which means things are going to change even more in the future. And it also makes him wonder why it seems like so many people are involved in this banquet. Sometime later, Rin is fixing her hair. She looks at Resimus and asks how she looks. Kay gives her a thumbs up, saying she looks amazing and the best version of herself yet. That's because she wants her to make up her mind already since she's tried on a dozen dresses. But she grabs another one, saying she's still not satisfied. Resimus then says she's sure Cheyenne would already like this one. She turns around asking what her dress has to do with Cheyenne. Resimus just replies that it's obvious since she was the one who sent the invitation. The poor girl is blushing, not knowing what to say, until the maid arrives with a gift from Prince Lunel. Rin seems a bit confused since it's not like her brother to do something like that. Meanwhile, Resimus is praising it, saying Cheyenne will surely think it's wonderful. Time passes, and we finally reach the much-talked-about banquet. Full of nobles walking around, and our boy is leaning against the wall with his hands in his pockets looking cool. He looks to the side and says that if Kellen is here, it means Estelle has also arrived. Kellen confirms this and says that at the moment, he's with Prince Lunel. However, he has something to say. Cheyenne asks if something happened. Kellen just says he has a bad feeling that many people will be in danger, including himself. That's because Estelle ordered him to leave the Imperial City before the banquet began. He said some things would happen, but they'd be for the greater cause. Cheyenne wonders if Estelle was behind the bloody banquet back then. Kellen says he's afraid for Cheyenne's safety, who tells him not to worry and to leave the city. However, Kellen questions whether it's really safe for him to stay there. Cheyenne says it is and tells him to leave immediately. With that, Kellen retreats. Meanwhile, Cheyenne thinks that this whole small mess is clear. Estelle was a far bigger scumbag than he imagined. Karam asks if by chance he's concerned about the lives of innocents. He says not really, he just finds what that guy is doing amusing. But more importantly, he'd have to postpone today's assassination. At that moment, Kellen activates a psychic resonance and tells Sirika that her dress looks great. Well, I agree. Then he informs her that today's death will have to wait. She asks why, and he responds that he received new information. This place is going to turn into a pool of blood. He can't explain because they're out of time, and for now, she should just keep an eye on what's happening. She asks if he's sure, and if the source is reliable. He says he's very familiar with the person who might be behind all this and is now certain. But she doesn't need to worry because maybe her disgusting fiancé will also be one of the victims. She blushes and asks how he knows it's her fiancé. He just turns around saying he's off to work. But then, from behind, Elise calls out to her. Sarika turns, confused, and sees her looking stunning, saying she missed her master. Sarika asks what she's doing there, and Elise says she came to clear her head. But now she's worried since Elise will also get caught in this mess. That's when someone approaches, saying they see two beautiful flowers before their eyes. Clearly, this is not someone Sarika wants to see. It's apparently her fiancé, the beloved Dranian Nephelis. Yes, from his smile, it's obvious he's not a good person. Meanwhile, our boy approaches Yulkin and says he has a job for him. Yulkin pounds his chest, saying he's ready for duty. Cheyenne tells him to cut it out, thinking Yulkin is way too confident these days. Maybe drinking dragon blood and all the training has turned him into a true warrior. He then tells him to go to the aqueducts and keep an eye on the area. However, Yulkin says he's scared because it's too dark, and Cheyenne immediately takes back that comment about confidence. He orders him to go right away and stop making excuses. But then Yulkin tells him to look behind him. Someone extremely suspicious was watching him. Immediately, Cheyenne moves to attack, saying he'll handle it. He grabs hold of someone only for Cheyenne to shout at him to get off. It was poor Emily who had been squashed. Poor girl. The scene then shifts to someone descending a staircase carrying a torch. They reach the lowest level and announce that the time has come. They call for all the servants to rise. Back at the banquet, Erin is there, angry that someone hasn't shown up. She touches her necklace, thinking she should have expected this from him. But that's when Yulkin introduces himself and says it's a pleasure to meet her. Erin immediately recognizes Luna of Rain River. Luna says she's honored to be remembered by royalty. Erin smiles and says she'd never forget a prodigy from the kingdom of Guren. As the voice of the empire, she welcomes Lunav to the banquet. Luna of Rain River compliments Erin's kindness and says it would be great if Xian could see how nice she is. Erin, a bit confused, asks if Lunav knows Xian. Luna of Rain River says she spent some time with him yesterday. Erin becomes confused at the thought of them being so close. But instead of just thinking it, she accidentally says it out loud. Luna of Rain River smiles and says it's as she suspected. She teases that Erin has a crush on Xian. Before Erin can react, someone screams. The two of them look to the side as a woman tries to alert the guards, but is struck in the neck. The two are confused, wondering how someone got in, because there's an assassin inside the imperial palace. The masked man looks at her and says the princess has been located. The scene shifts to Nana introducing herself to Emily, who is shocked. She falls to her knees, devastated to see that the new maid is younger and prettier. She asks Shan if she's being replaced, and Cyan says no. But he's more curious to know why Ishil brought her there. Emily says she thinks Ishil wants her as his maid because he even asked her to work for him. Obviously, Cyan doesn't like hearing that. We then see the moment Eshel asked her to be his maid. He says she seems so lonely ever since Shan went to the academy. But back in the present, Emily says she refused because she has to wait for her lord. She asks if he's sure, and she confirms, but Eshel isn't giving up. After all, he brought her to this place. At that, Cyan tells Jokum to protect Nana and Emily because things are about to get dangerous. He recalls that in his past life, she wasn't in this place. The fact that he sent Kellen already proves he's been watching him for a long time. But he won't allow his brother to hurt his people. There's chaos outside. Suddenly, Emily shows a ribbon and says Ishel sent it as a gift for his brother. She panics because she forgot to deliver it. But Nana notices something strange. Something red is seeping from the crystal inside. It seems to have a specific smell. In another part of the castle, someone sheaths a sword. It's Eshel speaking to the prince, saying everything has begun. The prince smiles back, saying the day they've been working toward has finally arrived. Eshel praises the knights the prince sent and says the recipients must have also received their gifts. The prince smiles again and says with all of this, the empire will rise from its decline. The honest brother agrees, saying it's time to show everyone. Who does the empire truly need? Back at the banquet, someone is telling everyone to run this way. It's Erin urging them to evacuate and let the guards handle it. Lunav tells her to run as well, but Erin says she needs to get everyone out first. Her friend says she'll join her and Erin thanks her. Meanwhile, the masked man is slashing through all the guards. One hears a scream, and when he looks to the side, he sees more enemies arriving. Another knight is killed, and the man doesn't know what to do, until someone calls for the commander. They warn that the area is full of mandrakes, which are high-level creatures. The problem is that this type of monster should only exist on the front lines. So what is it doing here? As he despairs without a solution, one of the creatures is completely blown apart. It's Sirika, looking stunning and strong, telling them to evacuate. The poor commander asks if she's an instructor from the academy, without noticing that someone is approaching from behind him. But from behind his back, Eris arrives and slices the threat in half. She tells him to run and leave it to her. Now that's true bro power, folks. The general tells all the knights to run and help those who are evacuating. However, the mandrakes keep attacking and the two prepare themselves. That's when another one runs past them from behind and they realize they're being ignored. The attack is heading straight for Erin. Sirika warns that the princess is the target. Just as Erin is about to lose her head, the general saves her. He orders everyone to protect the princess. But, oh boy, some blood splashes onto her face and she starts crying. Here comes the sadness. Oh, it's just the general. We don't care about him. Poor guy. But Erin is upset that Captain Morris has died. She begs Morris not to die. She notices he died with his serious expression intact. She begins blaming herself, saying it's all because of her. Meanwhile, Luna casts a water explosion. Combined with a wind explosion, it creates a tsunami. Erin is impressed that a second-year student can use fusion magic. Luna says it's too late for that guy and Erin needs to evacuate immediately. She's a bit sad, but the mandrakes are closing in, and it's better to run. The guards urge her to leave quickly, assuring her they'll handle it. They wouldn't let the captain's sacrifice be in vain. Luna starts yelling at her to start moving. Erin closes her eyes and says she'll never forget his sacrifice. Suddenly, the knights are surrounded by a golden aura. Erin says she's cast a temporary barrier on everyone because of the mandrake's poison. Even a simple touch could be fatal, so this would protect them. She orders that none of them die. The men smile and thank her, but they have that look of, yeah, we're gonna die. But off they go, charging at the mandrakes. Slash here, slash there. Then one of them gets impaled in the chest. Everyone is thrown aside. Ellis tells them all to get out of the way and unleashes a freezing attack. She runs toward Erin, telling her she needs to leave now. However, Erin has no idea who this woman is, and Elise introduces herself as Ellis of House Vert. The mandrakes roar, but Sirica leaps in, slashing through everything. The problem is that no one at the academy can know she's a dagger user. If they do, they'll start associating her with the Mist Group. Unfortunately, given the destruction around her, it's not the time to worry about that. She uses an attack that our boy has used before, 8 pedal strikes. The mandrakes finally stop moving. But what the knight doesn't see is an assassin right behind him. Oh wait, there's no assassin anymore. He's been sliced in half. Sirica tells them to stop letting their guard down because there are many enemies around. She only hopes Elise can evacuate everyone safely. But what she wants to know is what this terrifying sensation she's feeling is. Running through the corridors, Erin is more concerned about the fact that Elise is Xian's sister, and she starts to realize she has no idea where he is either. That's when the wall explodes and a creature appears in front of them. Ellis finds it strange that the monsters are showing up exactly where they are. The problem is that a crawler is a high-level night monster. Erin activates a chain trap while Luna uses a fire lance. The creature's feet are caught, forcing it to defend against the lance. Ellis is impressed that the two girls are far from weak. She decides she needs to show these Academy juniors that she's strong too. The creature roars and sends a blue attack their way. Luna activates a protective barrier and Ellis appears behind it. But of course, before attacking, she delivers an epic line. She declares that as a knight of House Vert, she'll make this creature regret everything. She activates a water blade and chops off the creature's arm. Back in the hall, Sirica has cleared the area. Finally, it seems she's killed the last of them. She approaches to remove a mask, thinking these assassins seem like monsters, but something was off. And then she's startled. These assassins are actually puppets. A long forbidden spell allows someone to control the bodies of the dead, and to control so many requires an incredibly powerful person who has prepared for a long time. Something on this scale was certainly not done by just one person. Maybe someone is trying to start a war. Some of the assassins are killed, and someone asks if these are the last of them. A man collapses with his sword on the ground, and two knights approach from behind, asking if His Majesty is all right. He tells them not to worry, as at least he has them by his side. One of them, Eshel, offers help and says he'll assist His Majesty. Meanwhile, the blonde guy is just observing. The vile blonde says not to worry because the knights will handle the rest. The king need not concern himself, they'll keep an eye on him. The crawler is finally killed, and Elise wonders where all these monsters are coming from. But suddenly, they're surrounded by a bunch of assassins again. Back at the moment, Emily hands over Eshel's gift to Cian. Velkin comments that he finds this very strange. After all, Eshel has never sent Shan a gift. He's always noticed that his boss harbors a sort of resentment toward his brother, something that seems much deeper than simple sibling rivalry. But then Karnan warns them that they need to run. Something extremely dangerous is coming their way. Emily, confused, asks why the girl's eyes are like that. And then suddenly, the wall behind them explodes. He turns and tells her to hide. Another high-level creature has appeared in that place. In another part of the castle, the rest of the guests are panicking and trying to escape. Among them is Sirica's cowardly husband, terrified of dying. He managed to be one of the first to flee, but right at the exit, a group of assassins was waiting. He cannot die there, no matter what, because he's eagerly anticipating spending quality time with his future wife. He asks the man beside him if the back door is truly safe, to which the man confirms it is. But just as he's about to seek further reassurance, something pierces through his head. The man is separated from his senses in an instant. The crowd screams in terror as the man's body collapses like discarded garbage. Everyone assumes this is the end for them. That's when a blue drop appears and Ellis activates a water explosion. She calls out to Luna to cast a freezing spell, creating ice spikes that pierce all the assassins. The knights stand there, dumbfounded, unsure of who these two women are.